But how did you get connected with Cornette in the first place? Was it just because you were a wrestling fan? Did you reach out to him? Did he know you? How did your first meeting ever take place?
Well, I'll tell you that story in January of '04, and it's up. The autograph is up there in the corner. We had a case in law school that we had to study. It was called Roy and Ruby Massey versus Jim Crockett Promotions et al. That's Latin for and others.
Well, how about that for you being a wrestling fan, and then you got
Yeah.
to
So
study this?
let me put this in perspective
Wow,
for
that's
you.
awesome.
In the early to mid 90s, I kind of got out of wrestling about 92, 93. I'd maybe watch Mania and Starrcade. Wasn't really feeling the product at that time in both WCW and WWF. But then I go to law school and I don't take a television. But at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Morgantown, West Virginia, they would show Raw and Monday Nitro every Monday night. And so my professor comes in, Professor Tom Cady, professor of torts and insurance, God rest his soul. He just passed away a couple months ago. He comes in one day to class, the torts class, midway through the very first semester, and he goes, "Who here is a wrestling fan?" And my buddies go, "New watches wrestling downtown every Monday night." Professor goes, "Oh, you brief Roy and Ruby Massey, and on Wednesday when you come in, you brief the rest of the class, and I want it with feeling, New." So I have to come in, I have to review the case. It's about the failure to provide security at the Beckley Raleigh County Armory and Civic Center. And some fan had thrown a ring marker in the ring and hit Bobby with it. Stan comes out of the ring and punches Roy Massey and breaks his orbital socket. Security takes Mr. Massey and his wife to the back, thinking we'll get a couple of autographs, we'll smooth this over. Cornette cuts a promo on him. Cornette calls him a black lung MFer, a no good son of a bitch, and da-da-da-da-da, and just cuts a promo on him, which then causes him to hire a lawyer and sue Jim Crockett, the Beckley Armory, the Midnight Express, and everybody. So the professor makes me tell the story and explain who these characters are. Beautiful, beautiful Bobby, ladies and gentlemen. Who is beautiful Bobby? And I've got to tell who Bobby is. Sweet Stan Lane. Rock and roll Ricky Morton. Who is that, New? And I've got to tell the story. I have to tell what's going on in the ring. And one of the issues in the case, I kid you not, you can read the case. One of the issues was whether it was humanly possible to put as many swear words in as short a period of time as the witnesses said Jim Cornette did. That was one of the issues that the West Virginia Supreme Court had to decide. So the class is just rolling laughing at all of this. And there's a Legends Fan Fest in Charlotte in January of '04, and I knew that the Midnight Express were going to be there. And I thought, I'm going to take a copy of this case down there, and I'm going to get it signed by the Midnight Express. Lawyer Mark here, right? I've got my little case. It's printed out. It's 12 pages. And Cornette just popped over there. "Motherfucker, why the fuck are you studying this in law school, motherfucker?" I mean, he just pops over the fact. He couldn't believe that we studied that in law school just a few years before. He put it in his book a few years later because he loves the fact that he's in a law book in West Virginia. And we bonded after that. And then, fast forward 10 years or so, Last is doing his podcast. And, Brian Last calls me up one day and he says, "Hey, look, I think this Cornette podcast is going to take off. You may want to get in on the ground floor here." And I said, "I think you're right, Brian Last. I think Cornette is money, and I'd love to be a sponsor." And the rest is history.
Wow. So how long has that been?
That was 2016, I believe.
2016. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So, excuse me if you said it. Who won? What? How did the case end?
Well, the judge at the trial court dismissed it early. It goes to the Supreme Court. They write this really funny opinion and comes back, and it gets settled out of case. The insurance companies, I don't think Crockett had to go into pocket, but I think between the insurance companies for the Armory providing the negligent security and the insurance companies for Crockett. They all got it settled after the appeal was done. But I think Jim Crockett's deposition was taken in that case. And you know, Cornette, if you've read that Midnight Express book, Cornette wrote down every night, everywhere they were, what the house was, and what they were supposed to have been paid. And then Crockett comes in the deposition, and he's under oath, and he's testifying inconsistently with what Jim knew the house was, how much money they made, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's funny to hear Jim tell that story about Crockett having to give that deposition in that case.
That's wild. So did you talk to Cornette then about the case? Like,
yeah, we talked about it. Like, I've talked to the lawyers here in West Virginia that just, that they're like, it's the craziest thing I was ever involved in, Steve. And I was like, well, if it had Corny and the Midnight Express and Jim Crockett Promotions, I don't doubt it.
I mean, what are the chances you get that? So then that got you connected with Cornette. Then you started sponsoring the podcast. And then you guys have just been, we'll call you friends now, right? Like, since then, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I said, get ready, get ready, get ready. I got the dots on. I got the elbow ready, baby. We're going to see it. Let's do it right now.